Hi, welcome back to my series where I'm talking about how a yoga therapist works with energy within the body. And today I'd like to talk to you about stability and ease. So sthira means stability and suka means ease. They apply to every layer of the human system, the physical body, physiology, mental processes, emotional processes, spiritual longings. We need to be both stable and flexible at the same time. So it's finding that balance between sthira and suka that we're all looking for. So let's break this down just a little bit more. So let's talk about the physical layer. So if we're too tight, then it shows up as muscle tension, restricted movement. The whole body maybe feels stuck in a particular posture that we assume most of our day. So, like I'm sitting here. If you sit in this posture 12 hours a day, you're gonna feel stuck in that area. Then on the other extreme, it's being too loose, which could lead to structural inability, overworked muscles that have been both, they've been overtasked by having to hold the body together, right? They've been overstretched. You might feel perhaps sacroiliac joint pain, which would give you that sciatica symptoms that we hear a lot about. Dislocations coming out of the joint. This can be exasperated if your intent in your yoga practice, if you view it only as increasing flexibility, whether it serves your greater need or not. And so I feel like our practice is finding that balance between strength and flexibility. Sthira, stability, which would be strength, suka, ease, flexibility. Physiological level of our practice, that all of our functioning body systems are working together in harmony. Things like our digestive system, circulatory system, immune system, right? All of these are tied to our autonomic nervous system. And there are two branches to that autonomic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system, which is that rest and digest, and the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight. If you find yourself in flight or fight, then we're activated by the sympathetic nervous system. We're tightly wound up, we're stressed out, we're jumpy. This places some wear and tear on those systems in the body that I mentioned previously, where if you reside mostly in the rest and digest, which would be your parasympathetic system, you might feel lethargic, have trouble rising in the morning, and getting motivated. So these two branches of the autonomic nervous system, one isn't better than the other, right? We're still trying to find balance between the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And so, we don't want to be too heavily meditated, right? Because if we're too calm, right, we could lead to lethargic and not being able to get up. We need a little bit of that sympathetic nervous system, right, to get us going, to do those daily activities. Let's talk about mental processing now. So if we have rigid thinking, we can become mentally blocked, right? That prevents us from accepting and processing new information because we've blocked in our thought process. We could get stuck in habitual patterns, stuck in creativity where our creativity is stifled because of these habitual patterns, because of this blocked thinking. And then we have, on the other hand, the inability to sustain focus or to we have constant mental distractions that impact all aspects of our lives, including relationships, hobbies, our health. So kind of looking at that process as well. Then we have personality and emotions. So are you a bottler, right? A bottler would have a lot of tension. Or are you a brooder? So brooders perhaps might be too loose with their emotions. So bottling pushes the unwanted feelings aside. They try to, trying to be present, right? With this kind of this mask of being upbeat and chipper, right? So I'm just gonna stuff it down, I'll put it aside, and I'm gonna be really chipper. That would be someone who bottles personality and emotions. They're not thinking about something as this enormous problem, because it takes a lot of mental energy when we're suppressing emotions. And at some point they're bound to leak out in unfortunate ways. And so I like to think about this two ways. You could think about it as everybody has that closet that's just kind of stuffed full of stuff. And you know, if someone says, oh, I'm in the neighborhood, I'm gonna stop over, it might be where you hurry and push things out of the way to tidy up your space. And we know at some point, you just can't put anything more in that closet, right? The door just kind of pops open. Or you could use the analogy of luggage, right? You're trying to stuff everything into that carry-on or that bag that you're checking, and you're sitting on it, and you're trying to zip it up, and you get to your destination and you're trying to pack it all to come back home, and it never quite fits the same, right? And so, you know, we've seen those bags that have been taped or strapped because they'll pop open and at inconvenient times it's coming down through a baggage claim. And then your things are strewn about, right? So, you know, it's kind of like that. If we keep suppressing, bottling, pushing away our feelings and emotions, at some point they catch up with us and we need to address them. Brooding manifests as stirring, kind of uncomfortable emotions over and over, unable to let it go. So perhaps you could think of this as maybe rumination. It could lead to worry and obsession, exaggeration, even the slightest misfortunes, you know, could lead to brooding. I think it's important here to talk about crying. Sometimes I try to stop my tears. Sometimes clients apologize for having tears. But I always say crying is the highest form of meditation. When we suppress our tears, we're suppressing our own healing. Crying activates our parasympathetic nervous system, so that rest and digest system that I talked about a moment ago. It releases stress hormones from the body, and it releases oxytocin, endorphins, which help us to relieve pain and elevate our mood. So crying is a great way to help heal wounds. And I think it's important for us to remember that. The last thing I want to talk about is spiritual longing. So rigid fundamentalist beliefs can be led to intolerance, bigotry, exclusion of aspects of reality that maybe don't conform to those beliefs, right? So it's isolating people that maybe have a different viewpoint than ours. So we're ending up in little pods of people that only have the same rigid fundamental beliefs as you. On the other hand, there's the inability to connect to anything greater than oneself. And this can lead to many people feeling adrift, unhappy, and disconnected. So again, it's about finding balance between the rigid fundamental beliefs to not believing anything that's greater than yourself at all. And so how do we find that middle ground? It's one of the reasons why I have the book clubs at the studio, and they talk about provocative subjects that perhaps are uncomfortable for people to have conversations about. And I do that so that we can start to heal wounds of society, of culture, to broaden our thought process around triggering conversations for people. Nobody has the right answer, but I feel like not talking about it isn't helping us heal, right? We have to have this messy conversations, these uncomfortable conversations in a safe environment. And from there, we can start to find what is true for us, what is right for us. So in yoga therapy, we use some of these different levels to co-create plans to work towards balance between sthira, stability, and suka, ease, at each of these levels. And the choice of the appropriate yoga tools, that depends on which system needs some fine-tuning for that individual. All right, so that's all I have today for this video for stability and ease. Thanks for sticking with me through it. I know sometimes they aren't things that you really want to think about, but I think the more that you learn about your body's systems and levels, the greater power that gives you towards healing and hope, which I think sometimes is overlooked in its empowerment. So I hope in sharing these it empowers you towards self-healing. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure, and I have to pinch myself that you support my life's passion often.